Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me just say that we get it. Personal development can be hard, but you don't have to do it alone. Project Endure has been on a mission to create a supportive and inspiring community of people, all striving to be better together. Head down to the link in the show notes and join the Hard Things Club so that we can do hard things together. And if you're already a member, invite a friend and spread the love. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 153. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very special guest in West Virginia, Adam Perry. What's up, Adam?
Joe, I'm so excited to be here today. I'm nervous. My palms are sweating right now. You can't see them. They're off screen, but the palms are sweating.
What are the Eminem lyrics? Knees weak, palms are sweaty.
Yes.
Spaghetti on his sweater already.
Yes.
Something like that.
No spaghetti yet, but that's TBD.
You didn't throw up before this podcast.
I only ran before this podcast. Really get the creative juices flowing.
How many miles did you run today?
Only 11 miles today. Only 11. Nothing crazy.
Only 11.
Nothing crazy. I ran 14 yesterday, so we're up to 25 this week.
We were talking about this before we hit record, but your dog runs almost all of your miles with you, most of your miles with you.
Every time I lace him up on the trails, he's there with me. It's kind of like he's my adventure buddy. Like he goes with me. It's almost like a safety net for me because he goes with me. And I talk to him too. I'm like he runs up and I'm like, man, good job. Like, you're doing great. Like, good job, dude. He can't talk back, but I know for a fact he's telling me in his mind, like, Dad, you're killing it too, man.
I love this already. So, all right, let me ask you this. Take me back to when you first got your dog. Also, by the way, what's his name?
His name is Winston. He's a golden doodle. So.
And when did you get Winston?
We got Winston in September of 2022.
Okay.
So
he's 1.5?
About 1.5 now, yes. Yep, 1.5.
How long did you have him before you were able to take him out on the trails?
Man, honestly, my girlfriend, she got him, and I actually was not for it at all. Like, I didn't want the dog. I was against it. And I didn't shun him by any means, but I was like, you know what, I just don't know about it. And I would say about a year in, we started crate training him, and I was like, you know what, I can't let this dog be in this crate for 8+ hours a day. I'm gonna start taking him with me. And he was a good dog then, and nothing, he didn't act out. But I can tell you this, when we started running, his temperament changed. He is an incredible dog, an incredible companion. He's been a great friend to me. And, those lonely miles aren't so lonely anymore now that I have Winston. So I'm very grateful to have the dog, for sure.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
I can relate in some ways. When we were thinking of getting Theo,
Mm-hmm.
I was the one who was holding up the process for a long time because, I like my routine and I like order and I like organization, and a dog felt like chaos, it's
100%.
like you introduce this living thing that you got to take care of. And it's a little bit unpredictable at
Mm-hmm.
first. And we actually ended up flipping a coin. I just was in this mood one night and I came downstairs with a quarter and I said, let's flip it. If it's tails, we get a dog. And we flipped it and it was tails and we got the dog. And best thing we've ever done. Best thing by far.
That's amazing, man. I'll never forget. I know we're talking about a serious note here, but when he pooped on the dash, bro. That I remember seeing that on Instagram and I lost it. Like I couldn't help but laugh. And you always are in such good spirits and so positive. It's like, check this out. He's paying it on the dash, and I was dying.
So it's funny you brought that up because I was talking about it the other day. We went out to Ohio from Pennsylvania to pick him up. 6 hour drive. We get him. He's so sweet, so calm. Great car ride back. We're about 10 minutes from home. So we've been in the car with him now for almost 6 hours. And he started to get restless. And we didn't know him at the time. He didn't know us. So it was hard for me to read what was going on. But he just seemed like he wanted to move around. So I just let him go up on the dashboard from my lap and I thought it was cute. So I took out my
For
phone.
sure.
And I mean, at that point, when your 8 week old puppy that you just met starts pooping on the dashboard 10 minutes from home, like the only thing you can do is laugh
Oh, for
about it.
sure.
And of course, share it on social media. So,
For sure.
um,
What a great
but
moment.
I'm glad that, oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it's only gotten better from there.
For sure.
We haven't had any more poop on the dashboard moments,
That's
but
good.
enough about that. Let's talk about you. For the people who don't know who you are, Adam, how would you introduce yourself if you couldn't tell them what you did for work?
Oh, that's a great question. I if someone were to get to know me based off of, I mean, I'm an ultra runner. Like I love to run. It's my passion. Um, I feel like all my conversations always lead to running and, you know, doing longer distances. And I like that, but I also want them to know, like, I'm a good person. I'm here for people. I care about people, and I just want to I want to be supportive to those around me, specifically my family and friends. And you know, I'm a supporter. Um, I love helping the team, and I love being there. So
Mm.
if that's you take running out of it, I want to be known for being a good person that was there for my friends and family.
So, what comes to my mind when you share all that is first, amazing. I love that. That's admirable. That's what I want to.
Yeah,
The second thing that comes to my mind is it's easier said than done sometimes to be that person,
yeah,
right? I think we as humans, we all have our own desires, these things that, draw us to them, whether it be running or a career or something else. And we can sometimes get lost along the way and lose sight of the people close to us.
for sure.
So what are some of the challenges that you have in being there for the people close to you and supporting others? Where does that get hard and what does that look like?
Man, I'll tell you, it is hard to, specifically when you have a busy schedule with the profession you've chosen or the passion that you know you're drawn to, is knowing that there's times where you have to be selfish for yourself. And that's something that I'm learning to balance every day. And it's so hard because I want to I'm not a talented person. Like I'm not talented. I just have to work really hard at things. And for me to be good at something, I've got to put in the time, I've got to put in the effort, and that takes me away from a lot of things. My family, my girlfriend, and it's tough. It's tough whenever you're stretched thin, and sometimes I have to take a step back from that and be like, like you got to remember your core values here. Like your family's first, dude. Like you need to show up to your niece's birthday party, or you need to make sure you're there for that family dinner. Um, it's just taking a step back and realizing like there's other important things other than going out and taking a watch picture or going on an adventure with your friends. So
What role does ego play in all of that and in your life, both positive and negative?
I like to think I don't have a big ego, like at all. Like I try to stay humble as much as I can. Like that's a point to me. Like I never want to be like braggadocious or look at me like I'm doing all these things. Like if it weren't for my family and friends, like I wouldn't be who I am today. They've set me up for my successes. My mentors, my boss, uh, he's been a huge mentor to me. I mean, we have a almost a 20-year relationship. Um, so I take a lot of those things that I've learned and try to not let my ego get in any way of making a decision and just go based solely off of what's right in my heart.
Hmm. Does social media make it easier or harder for you to stick to your core values?
Oh, dude, it's hard, man. You get so distracted by social media. It's ridiculous. I've actually been trying to read a little bit more books in the evenings and trying to get a little bit more knowledge and put the phone down. Like, what's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? Unless you're Joe Rinaldi, you work out, or a lot of those normal human beings, they're flipping and scrolling, or right before they go to bed, they're flipping and scrolling on TikTok, Instagram, and it's a bad habit. It's a bad habit, and you can absolutely get distracted in life off of that.
Yeah, it catches me too, man. It's built that way, right? It's
100%.
designed to be addictive. But the thing that I think about when I catch myself in those loops is what's down in the well comes up in the bucket.
Yes.
What we feed ourselves, we digest, we internalize, whether we realize it or not, and that ends up showing in how we act, how we love other people, how we are present or absent
Mm-hmm.
for other people. And so I love the idea of being more intentional with what you consume.
For sure.
And we're shaped by those things and also through our experiences. And so
Mm-hmm.
the nature of this podcast is to talk about some of the hard times and to maybe pull out nuggets of how you found strength through struggle, how you grew through a challenging season.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look back at your life so far, Adam, what's the hardest thing you've ever had to handle that you did not get to choose for yourself?
Man, it brings me back to it. My life I've been so blessed, Joe, and my family means the world to me. My mom and dad they have sacrificed everything to make sure that I had a vehicle to drive to school or a safe bed to sleep in. It brings me back to probably about 2011. My mom and dad, they own their own business. My dad was an architect. He had his own company, built houses in this really nice community called Glade Springs. And when the economy crashed, my mom and dad lost their business, filed, filed for bankruptcy. And I'll never forget, I was a sophomore in college, and I'll never forget coming back to the place where I lived. My mom and dad lost their house. They built a dream house. They lost their house. My mom's car was being repossessed. I watched mom's car be repossessed out of our driveway one day, and then to come home on Thanksgiving break and see my mom and dad living with my grandmother in a one bedroom garage apartment with I have four siblings, including my grandmother. Seven people living. I don't know if you've seen the movie Willy Wonka. Remember when they're all living in that with the bed? That was my family. Hit dead rock bottom. And it hurt, man. Seeing my mom and dad like that and seeing the effects it has had on my siblings, growing up. It was hard times. And but my mom and dad, I think the beauty of seeing them stay resilient and continue to work hard and just knowing that those moments don't shape you forever. It's gonna be bad for a minute. You gotta live in it for a while, you know. But if you can continue to stay resilient and work hard, and now my mom and dad are doing phenomenal. They live back in Glade Springs to this day. Um, you know, they're doing amazing. But seeing times like those, that I feel like that really shaped me uh, as a person specifically my mom and dad. You know, they're just huge role models to me. I know in the tough times, man, it's gonna be tough, but you keep working, man. You're gonna work your way out of it some way, somehow.
Mm. What a great example that you got to witness growing up and still to this day, it sounds like.
Mhm.
What were some of the emotions that you felt that you experienced when you went back home and saw all of that?
Dude, embarrassment. You know, coming, living a good life, and my mom and dad built this dream house for themselves, and having to sell that, and going through the motions of losing a business, and then moving in to a one bedroom garage apartment. Was embarrassed, was mad, felt helpless. Um, but my mom and dad, they continued to stay strong, and they still helped put me through college even in those moments. I was the only person besides my dad that had a car in our family at that time. My mom and dad were still helping me make payments towards my car. And mind you, I ended up getting a job and helping supplement that in. But frustration, embarrassment, helplessness are certainly some of those emotions that I remember feeling. I just wish I could go back in that time and just console my mom and dad and be like, "Hey, look, it's gonna wait. You guys just wait. Keep doing your thing. It's gonna be great again." You know?
Yeah, and of course, it's easier to say that in hindsight,
Mhm,
seeing how things play out, But going back to that season of feeling helpless,
mhm,
a little bit embarrassed, frustrated,
for sure.
a little bit mad. How did you process that? And if you would process it differently today, what would that look like?
You know, I was a sophomore in college. Um, my processing probably wasn't as clear as it is now. You know, as someone that's grown up a lot since then. Um, I wish I would have been a little bit more constructive back then, and
Mm.
been more helpful. Like, stepped in as the oldest brother and been like, "How can I help? What can I do to help this situation?" But instead, I felt like I kind of took the back seat. I really didn't know what to do. You know, I wasn't sheltered by any means as a kid, like, at all. But I feel like my mom and dad really protected my mental back then. They just tried to hide that away from us, and they took the brunt force of what was going on in those moments. And honestly, dude, I have only told a handful of people this story in my life. Like, there's only a very select few. If my mom and dad listen to this podcast, I hope it's okay that I tell this story. But you know, just want to tell them how proud I am, and I love them so much, and I'm just so grateful for everything that they've given me to stand on and becoming the man who I am today.
They sound like amazing human beings. And obviously you are as well, and you get a lot of that from them. I would love to dig in a little bit more to the feeling of embarrassment. Because it's not an emotion I think a lot of us are open to talking about. It's something that we've all felt at times. And what happened to your parents objectively isn't a reflection of you. It isn't even a reflection of them.
Mhm.
It's a reflection of the top of the
Yeah,
times, right? What were you embarrassed about back then?
I think that you know, growing up, we we had we were very blessed and fortunate to live in a private gated community, which all this transpired through. You know, I'm not saying we were wealthy by any means, but we were doing okay. And I think just having that, not standard, it might not be the word, but it was a standard at a point, um, that we were living a good life, and to have that stripped away, I think that embarrassment, and of course it went public around the community that we were living in. I think that really ties into the embarrassment of like, hey, these folks were, towards the pinnacle, and now, they're dirt poor, living, you know, out past Shady Spring High School, seeing no damn road. Like, that's embarrassing. You know what I mean? Like, it was shocking, and I just those moments were tough times, dude. Tough times.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing you talk about it because it makes me think that you can't feel embarrassed if you don't care what other people think. And I think as humble as any of us are, right? The human mind naturally gravitates toward I wonder what other people are thinking about this situation.
100%, yeah.
And so as you move away from that and more toward present day, what does it look like for you to think about what other people think of you? What is your view of the world and how they view you?
Man, I take, you know, this is probably not the right way to think, but man, I have I have a career. I work in an area of West Virginia that is, top tier, the Greenbrier Sporting Club. It is an honor to be thought of well, specifically in this community that I'm living in now, and the profession that I'm doing. I I, I care deeply what others think of me, um, because I want to be known as a good person, as someone that they can rely on, that they can count on if they needed to. I want to be dependable, and I think a lot of these influencers you see on social media, like the David Goggins, like I, I don't care what you think of me. The world needs people like that, but they also need people like a Joe Rinaldi or an Adam Perry who, like, if they you care what other people think of you, you know what I mean? Like, that's your reputation. Like, you've built a incredible business, through Project Endure. Like, that reputation, it carries on if you want to keep reaching new heights. And I think that sticks with me as well. If I want to continue reaching new heights, like, got to make sure people know, like, this kid's pretty good. Like, he's gonna be there. You know.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that we all want other people to think highly of us. We all want
Mhm.
other people to have a positive image of who we are. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that could be a really positive driver that shapes us into the person we want to become.
Certainly.
And at the same time, I know a lot of people and I have a lot of conversations with people who get carried away with that
Mhm.
and think so much about what other people think of them and care so deeply about the opinions of those outside of themselves
Mhm.
that it almost cripples them to the point of not wanting to try, not wanting to fail, not wanting to fall short, because then that image isn't so pristine.
Yes.
And they wonder, well, if I don't accomplish this,
Mhm.
if I don't hit the mark, what will other people think of me? And you don't strike me as that person because you go after things.
For sure.
Am I wrong on that?
I, Dude, I used to be such a risk taker. Like, I used to take risk, and I feel like the past 5 years, I have just fell into this well of complacency.
Hmm.
It's been like I've been spinning my wheels almost. And I saw this quote the other day, and then we talking about social media. It was like, the magic you're looking for is in the work you put off, bro. That, like, it's like I was like, the heavens opened up, and it's like these angels, like, oh, like, I I need to start taking some risk, bro. Like, that's something I need to start doing better of, because you can just fall into this. Your wheels are just turning in the mud, man. And you're not going anywhere. And now, look, I've done some amazing things in these past 5 years, but I feel like I could be doing better. I
Hmm.
think that that's the athlete in us too, and the competitive side of, like, we can always be doing better in some facet of life, no matter what season we're in. But I definitely think risk is a top priority specifically. It started trickling in a little bit last year with, when you put things out for the world to know, like, I'm gonna run 100-mile ultra. Like, people almost want to see you fail. Like, they'll never say that. You know what I mean? Like, they might be like supportive on the front end, but back of the house, they're thinking, in a way, this kid's about to do this, you know? And I think running an ultra has certainly helped me get back into that risk realm, if you will, of putting myself out there for the option of failure. That makes sense.
Oh, it makes complete sense. And I could talk about this for a while, but I think about it a lot in terms of building a business, the same way that you think about it a lot in terms of ultra running. But you know, building anything invites the risk of collapse.
Yes.
Pursuing anything invites the risk of failure.
Mhm.
And what you said is so spot on. And it's not something that a lot of people would be bold enough to say out loud, but we've all been there. I think like it's human nature, right? You see someone going for something big, and part of you, whether you like it or not, whether you want to think it or not, thinks, no way they're going to do that.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see what it looks like when they fall short, right?
absolutely.
Like that's the truth. And the craziest part about it is then when that person does it, it's almost like a flip switches in your head and you're like, oh man, like that's amazing. I was rooting for that person the
The whole
whole
time.
time, right? I'm on
I'm
board.
on
I'm on
board.
board now,
Yeah, I've
right?
been Team Adam this whole time, but back in April, I'm thinking this kid's about to fall flat on his face. And if they would have seen me at
Which
mile 92, they probably would have been like, "This that there's a 99% chance this kid's definitely failing." Just ask Chris Goodbye, and he was there for the whole thing.
we've got to talk about some Chris Cabayan stories too.
Oh yeah,
But like I wonder, part of me wonders why is that? Like why do we sometimes think, it would be nice to watch this person fall short? And is it because if that person does that thing, it makes us feel a little bit more uncomfortable in our complacency? Because that person is pushing the limits in a way that we truly desire we could. And if they do achieve that thing, accomplish that goal, push further than that limit, then we feel worse about ourselves because we're not.
I,
Is that the
I
case?
feel like it's almost like an insecurity thing, you know, like they always hyper focus on a certain athlete or a certain influencer,
Mm.
and I feel like they go at things that they're insecure about themselves. And dude, I'm not sitting here saying I'm scot free of being that person. I've done it, I've done it, and I'm not proud to admit that, but I think it's human nature sometimes that you do have those feelings. Now it hasn't been recently by any means. I mean, but like growing up, like you're growing up and going through the motions. uh, you know, it happens.
One of the traits that I find most admirable and that I am actively striving toward the most
Mhm.
is being able to genuinely celebrate someone else's win while I'm still waiting for mine.
Yes.
I cannot tell you how much I admire that trait in other people. There are a handful of people that have popped into my mind as I'm saying
Mhm.
this, and they do such a great job of encouraging, supporting, rooting for other people, even if they've been waiting years for their win, for their success, right?
It's amazing.
And I think it takes a really secure, confident, uh, kind of person to be able to do that. And
Mhm.
I'm striving from working toward that. I'm not great at it always,
Yeah.
but I'm working toward it. Um, and so, with that being said, Adam, let's talk a little bit about running. And I'll lead in with this question that I'm assuming you'll answer with a running related topic. But
Mhm.
what's the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose that you've chosen to do? And why did you choose to do that thing?
Uh, it it's definitely the 100 miler, man. I mean, I I'll never forget in 2022 in February, I I committed to running a 50K, and I finished that 50K, and it was really hard. And I put it, and you can go back and look at the post to this day. I said, I will be running Rim to River 100 in Fayetteville, West Virginia next year. And I did it. I committed to it. It was scary, but I tell you what, man, if you surround yourself with the right people and you put the right people in play for you during these events, during you know, these really hard tasks, no way I would have been able to finish this race without Chris Gubayan. No way would I been able to finish this race without my girlfriend Tyranda. There is no way you cannot do it by yourself. Like these things, like an Andy Glaze, yeah, you could do it by yourself. Somebody like an Andy Glaze, but you know, somebody not talented like me, like I need these people in my corner to help me. So certainly Rim to River 100 last November, was planned out, and I knew it was going to hurt. And boy,
Hmm.
did it hurt.
So, all right, I want to break this down a little bit. And of course, 100 miles is a long time. So maybe we just hit on a few highlights, but
Mhm.
take us through that race, the swing of emotions, the ups, the downs, the twists, the turns. What was memorable for you?
Um, I first want to say that I think I do these races because I value bringing everyone together. Like for me, bringing my friends, my very close friends, my family together to celebrate a goal, and for them to feel involved and being a part of a success. It's not my success by any means. I'm just the conduit. I'm just the one putting one foot in front of the other. But these members, these family, these friends, these are the reasons why I do it, because I want to bring them all together and to celebrate each other. And I think that's so special, is to have everybody there. But the beginning of the race, um, I told myself, I was like, I'm going to start at the front of this thing. Like I'm going to start at the front. I told myself, I was like, I'm going to leave Rim River for the first 200 yards. Like I'm going to sprint it for the first 200 yards. And the gun went off, man. That rush of emotion just goes straight to your heart and your soul, because the culmination of 12 months just comes down to this one moment you've been prepping for. And there's no better feeling than hearing that gun go off and knowing that you did everything in your power to get there healthy, and you got a game plan and you got the right people in place. And I took off out of there. I was on the very far left of the start line, and it's really funny because we're on our headlamps, and Greg was there, and Tyranda was there, and Tyranda's taking a video of people going up this big mountain. Like you could see the runners all going. It looked like a conga line of like lights. And Tyranda, the video goes, I bet that guy leading in the front right now is Adam. And by God, it was me. It was me, baby. It was me. And trust me, it hurt. Yeah, I did not have those spirits coming into mile 92, but it felt good to lead the pack for the first couple hundred yards.
I love that. So, all right, you're out in front. At some point, you slow down enough where that's not the
Yes.
case. Um, so take us through some of the big moments in this race over those 100 miles.
Well, Greg was there. He kind of played as my nutrition coach in a way. And it was funny because he would call me when he knew I needed to eat. He would call my cell phone up, and I had my aftershocks headphones in, and I'd hear like, Greg is calling you, and I'd be like, gosh, I gotta eat, man. Like I gotta eat. And I got to mile 17. It was a beautiful day. I started eating this Bobo's bar, mind you. I'm an idiot, and I'm the type of person that likes to try new things, at on 100-mile race, like my A race of the year. Bro, when I tell you this Bobo's bar, it like got lodged in my throat. Like I couldn't eat. So like I get to mile 17 and they're like serving hot chicken broth. I'm like, all right, give me some broth real quick. I burned the crap out of my throat, dude, trying to get this Bobo's bar down that I'd never even eaten one of those. But Greg suggested it. I'm not throwing him under the bus right now, but he did suggest that, and I tried it. And I felt like from there forward, I got behind on my nutrition. And these longer efforts, like you've you got to eat. There's just no way around it. Like you have to eat. You have to have a game plan. So like my game plan was a little bit uneven and rocky throughout, but ended up getting a mile 30 at the 50K mark and saw my crew and got re-energized, got some food back down the hatch, um, and then you know it this is not a flat race by any means. Like you're in the mountains of West Virginia here. Like
Mm.
there's a lot of elevation gain, a lot of descent, and it was really cool because it was during like BPN's Prove Yourself Right campaign, and my mom and I guess my girlfriend, like they all like correlated these like really cool sweatshirts. It was like Prove Yourself Right sweatshirts, and there were like 8 people wearing them in my like crew. I'll never forget coming in mile 50 and seeing all of them there in those sweatshirts. Like my mom, my dad, my 2 sisters, my brother, my Mimi, my cousin. Like they were, and Tyranda was on these sweatshirts, and it was such a cool
Mm.
moment to see everybody in these matching sweatshirts. And it said, "Prove yourself right." And it was just a constant reminder of like, you can do it, dude. Like you're right in the middle of this, but you can do it. Um, Picked up Greg, was feeling good from mile 50 to 60 ish, and by that point it was starting to get dark. And I picked up my best friend in the world, Trace Wilkes. He's from Huntington, West Virginia. Great kid, strong athlete, just a great person. Like he and I are like, I feel like we're the same person. I love him to death, man. I can't say enough good things about my boy Trace. He has got me through some dark times. And I strategically placed my pacers knowing that, I would be down when I needed them the most. Like Greg's like that motivational, like, come on, dude, like let's go. Like he pulls you along. But Trace, he's kind of my voice of reason. Like, he's not gonna say much, but he'll if it's important, he'll speak up. Um, I never forget getting into about mile 72, and nobody knows this, and I'll put it on the podcast. I wanted to go sub 24. I didn't want to. I never put it out there because it was such a high risk factor that I didn't want to get embarrassed and people know like I failed. I failed. I failed.
Mm.
I didn't get the sub 24, but I'm gonna get it next. I'm gonna get it this year because your boy signed up again. I'm gonna get sub 24. But let me get back to mile 70 of 2023. I was running a really good race. I was feeling good. I was well on my way to sub 24. And about mile 70, that's where they say the race begins in 100. Mile 70 to 80. And mile 65, like I was still running. Like I was running great. And my boy Trace, he looks at me and goes, "Hey man, I'm not gonna tell you what to do, but your sub 24 time is starting to slip. You can tell me to keep pushing you, or you can just tell me that you just need me to be right here with you." And I told him I just needed him to be right there with me in those moments, those dark, cold moments, man. And we were coming into mile 80, and I was broke off, man. Like I had a pretty bad blister on my right ankle um, that was starting to open up into like a flesh wound, and that wasn't really the kicker. I was so chafed. I just didn't like it never, dude, all the thousands of miles like training, I never chafed like at all. Summer, winter. About mile 50, I felt some chafing coming on. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna handle this. Like I'm gonna put some more like swirls nut butter on it, or salty britches is really good too. It was too far gone, bro. It was too far gone. Um, and I was coming down the hill, and like I was kind of out of it at that point. Like it's about 18 hours in. Dude, I thought I was hallucinating when I saw Chris Gabayan. Like I thought he was a figment of my imagination when I pulled into that camp, bro. But he was there. He surprised me, bro. He surprised me. He and Tyrando were working this out. I had no clue. He drove up that day, and seeing him at mile 80. It was such a breath of fresh air. And I get emotional thinking about it, man. Gabayan's energy is just second to none. Huge pick me up at mile 80. And from there, I was chafed so bad I couldn't run. Like I was just pretty much power hiked the last 20 miles. I remember looking down at my watch, and my average pace is like 27 minutes per mile. And at that point, you kind of realize like, okay, like your goal's gone. It's okay. You're still in the middle of this. Like, don't like keep fighting, dude. And I had Greg from mile 80 to 92, and Greg was phenomenal, man. He picked me up. No one will understand those those 12 miles that he and I endured. No one will understand what we went through that night, and I was proud to have him in those moments. He was exactly what I needed, and I can't tell Greg how much I appreciate him enough, man. He's just such a great guy. Um, then I get to mile 92 to 100. My boy Trace picks me up, have an out of body experience, start hallucinating a little bit. I was going down this little hill, and I remember vividly seeing myself out of my body. Like I like looked at myself like out of my body. Like I could see myself. It was crazy.
Hmm.
And from mile 92 to 100, man, it was a grind with Trace. And I dreamt about that moment of making that left hand turn down the road, the last probably quarter of a mile downhill. And I never forget giving Trace a huge hug right at that intersection before we cut left, and consoling him, and just it was my dream to have him there with me in that moment. And then the finish line feels, man, having Chris there, Greg, my family, my friends. You, you don't know it until you experience it. The power of a community, the power of family and friends has on you in those low moments. Um, I want to say thank you to to Chris Gabayan, Greg, Trace, Tyranda, my mom and dad, and my family and friends, and everyone that supported me uh, for that entire race season. Man, I felt the love all year long, and making you guys proud is something that I hold true to my heart, and it gets me through the day, it gets me through the night, gets me through those long runs. And yeah, you do it for yourself sometimes, but for me, it's about like making those I care about proud. That's why I do these things. No other reason, really. And it hurts. It hurts, and it's lonely, and it rains, and it pours, and it snows, and it's windy, and it's sunny, and it's lonely. But you get through it, man, and you get this huge sense of fulfillment, uh, gathering everybody together for those things. It's special. That was a
Man,
lot.
dude, it was great though. And I know Greg, I know Chris both very well. I don't know Trace. I don't know your girlfriend. I don't know. She's your girlfriend, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. No fiance yet. All right. Not gonna
If she hears
speak
this,
that
if
word.
she hears this, oh boy, I'm in the doghouse, Joe.
I'll edit it out.
Edit it out.
I never
Don't worry, I get
or
ring Instagram posts sent to me hourly every day. Hey, this looks good. Hey, this looks good.
all right, there we go. So, but I don't know her. I don't know your family, but I do know for a fact you made a lot of people proud, myself included, watching from afar. And, like Chris Kabayan, he's episode 126 of this podcast. Greg Jerez, episode 124 of this podcast. Just two of the best human beings I know. And it's no coincidence or surprise that those people are attracted to you and vice versa. And it's one of my favorite things about social media. I know we talked about how social media can suck you into this hole, but there's so many amazing things that come out of the online world, if you will,
Mhm.
right? And real tangible friendships are one of them,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, Gabayan was driving up to Michigan, and he literally stopped at my apartment and stayed the night with Echo. And dude, it was like being around. It was like bonus. It was like bonus time with Coach. It was great, man. Like it was such a nice 2 days with him. Oh, I can't say enough good things about Chris, man. My gosh, we had some great conversations on those coaching calls. He's a rock star, and I talk to Greg every day. By the way, he and I have built this great connection. We're boys. He wanted me to do the
Right?
250-mile relay with him, but I just couldn't make it work. So
Yeah, 250 miles is a lot. Maybe next time.
yes,
But the other thing I wanted to touch on that you mentioned was you didn't put that idea of the sub 24 out there at the time. And I'm so glad you shared that now
mhm,
because I think it's really relatable. I think a lot of us hesitate to speak things out loud because we're unsure if we'll be able to hit them,
yeah,
to accomplish them. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the name. Do you know who Casey Neistat is?
I do not. I do not.
Okay. So he's a YouTuber. He's one of those guys who kind of is famous through the platform of YouTube for just vlogging his life. And
Mhm,
one of the things among many other that he does is run. And he made this really awesome video a few weeks back about Sisyphus. So for anybody who's unfamiliar, quick summary of Sisyphus, like Greek mythological character was punished for cheating the gods, and his punishment was to roll this massive boulder up a really steep hill. And as soon as he got to the top, right before it went over the edge to the other side, it would roll back down and he would have to roll it back up the hill. And he would roll it up and it would roll back down over and over and over again for, I believe, eternity. That was his punishment. And so Casey Neistat, his goal had always been to run a sub 3 hour marathon. And he made this amazing video documenting, I believe it was 24, 25, or 26 attempts at a sub 3 hour marathon where he consistently fell short. He'd get really close. Sometimes he'd be further than others. And finally, he did it. And it was so beautiful to be able to watch what he put together because you saw this journey of thousands, tens of thousands of miles
mhm.
over a decade plus of his life of just attempting this one thing. And it made it that much more beautiful when he finally did it.
Yeah,
And I don't think failure takes away anything from the process. I think it actually adds a lot of depth to the process. And, it's been said that failure is not the opposite of success, it's just part of it.
yep.
And I appreciate you sharing that because I think it's so relatable.
I appreciate that, man. I'll definitely have to check that out. And in this game, in this running game, there are no shortcuts. You have got to put your time in. And just because you put these miles in, you do the workouts, you wake up at 3 in the morning and do these things, it does not guarantee you that goal time. You guys got to realize that just because you're doing the work, it doesn't mean anything. It only gives you a better chance at reaching that. truly.
One thing that I've thought a lot about over the past few years and that I feel really convicted in, and yet it's still hard to fully grasp, is the fact that hard work works, but it's not about what the work gets us.
Mhm.
It's about who the work makes us,
Exactly.
and the outcome's not guaranteed. Like you said, you can work as hard as you want for as long as you want, and you still might not get the outcome.
Yep.
But it's just not about the outcome. It's about who you become
Yes.
in the pursuit,
Yes.
you know?
It's about that journey, dude. That journey is far greater than the destination. Um, I'll tell you, when I ran my 100K in April, I felt after the race, I felt the biggest void in my life. Like I was almost to the point of like depression. I felt
Mm,
like everything had just been like stripped from me because you work so hard towards this destination that you sometimes fail to realize when you're in the moment, when you're in the training, when you're waking up early and you're doing it by yourself, that is the best part right there. Hold on to that. Some days can be better than others, but once you click over that race and your friends are gone back to North Carolina, gone back to Huntington, and you're back in Lewisburg, nobody can save you then. It's just you again. And that void is real. That void is real. So fill it quick, like jump back on the horse, like. And after my 100, I did want to tell you this. After my 100, I actually didn't experience any sort of post race depression or blues or void. I think I was I was upset. A part of me was really upset and let down that I didn't get what I told myself that I thought I could do. But after a couple weeks, I had a conversation with Tyranda, and I just told her, I said, I feel like the race, I gave it everything I had for those 28 hours. I gave it everything I had. And at the end of the day, I'm okay with that because I had nothing left. I'd emptied the tank that day. If I would have finished the race feeling like I could have done better, that's one thing. But having the feeling and emotion of emptying the tank, you can get some closure off of that. And you can begin to process what happened, and then you can begin to start again. And
mm,
it's special, man. I've never been more fired up to. I ran the Cabin Fever 50K a couple weeks ago. I was fired up, man. Like I was excited to run the race. And the cool part was is like I got to finish those last 20 miles of the Rim to River 100. That the last 20 miles of the 50K was the last essentially 20 miles of rim. Dude, every step that I was taking strong and running, it brought me back to that dark moment, and just it just was putting it to bed. Every step it was just putting what happened to just to bed. It was great. It was such a cool feeling. And then crossing that finish line and knowing like you did it, dude. Like you did another hard thing. How special is that? And it just closed the door, baby. I'm ready. I'm ready for it all.
it is almost my bedtime, Adam, and I feel like I might have to grab a workout after this, to
My
be
man.
honest.
My man. I'm doing
I'm
my
feeling
job.
it. Well, I'll add one other thing in here, and then I want to ask you kind of the final two questions to wrap up. But, from a practical standpoint, there are people listening to this, and a lot of them are running. Some of them are running for fun, some of them are running races, but there are people out there who might not have ever run, or they can't relate to that idea of doing this event or this race or this hard thing and then showing up again, having closure, XYZ. But I think to bring it back, you reminded me of episode 26 of this podcast with Richard Pogue. He runs an after school program that teaches kids about grit, which I think is so
That's
cool.
awesome.
Uh, Yeah. And so one of the things that he does though is when the kids come in, he'll ask them what energy they have that day. Out of 10, what energy are you today?
Mhm.
And if a kid says I'm an 8 out of 10, he'll say give me all of that 8. And if a kid says I'm a 2 out of 10, he'll say it's okay, just give me all of that 2. And I think there's a really important lesson there is that we wake up every day, we show up every day with different our cups are full to different amounts for whatever reason. And if we could just empty the cup, whether it's halfway full, a quarter of the way full, all the way full, if we just empty the cup, we could put our head on our pillow at night and feel proud, feel good, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%, man. Every single person listening to this, your 100% is different than any one of us. And it was different than the one you had yesterday. But I think this analogy I love, and it might be from Goggins. Think of it like a soaking wet washcloth, and just wring that thing out every last drop you can. You've only got one of these. You only got one life, man. Go out there, make it count, give it your all. Look, I promise you one thing. When when it's my time to punch out, I'm gonna make dang sure I gave it everything I had to myself, to my family, to my friends, to my wife, whoever that may be. Just kidding, Tyranda. But I'm serious. I'm gonna wring that towel out every day and get every last drop out of this life.
Mm, beautiful. So, all right, Adam, we're going to talk a little bit about endurance and then we'll wrap things up. So, when you hear the word endurance, what does that mean to you?
I think the word endurance to me means choosing to do something hard and continuing to show up for yourself on the days when it feels great and the days when it doesn't feel so great, but just continuing to show up and knowing that people see you working, people are there for you, and you can do it, man. You can do anything you set
Mm,
your mind to. You just got to continue to show up every single day of your life.
yeah. And so, I'll throw a quote at you before I ask the final question. This is from a guy named Dax Shepard who said, success is just a war of attrition. Sure, there's an element of talent you should probably possess, but if you stick around long enough, eventually something is going to happen. And I feel like a lot of endurance is that it's sticking around long enough for something to happen. It's Sisyphus rolling that boulder
Mhm.
up the mountain as many times as needed until it finally tips over the other side.
Yes,
It's putting one foot in front of the other, no matter how bad it hurts to get to the end of that race. And it's something that we all have the ability to do if we set our minds to it.
absolutely, man. And everybody has a different finish line. You don't have to
Mm.
run. You don't have to lift weights. You can be like that gentleman that's running an after school program teaching kids about grit and integrity. Everybody's finish line's different, but just keep showing up for yourself, and your foot will cross that finish line one day.
And this podcast description, I usually highlight right the nuggets of wisdom, the things that stand out. I mean, this is like paragraphs, man. We can write a short book about this.
It,
But to wrap it all up, Adam, there are people listening to this who have already gotten a lot out of our conversation and from your life experiences. But if somebody out there is specifically going through a tough time right now, a dark season, they're just feeling down, they don't know where to go or what to do, and you got to speak to them, what would you say?
man, that's such a great question. I would tell them that everything's gonna be okay. That it's gonna it's gonna hurt and it's gonna suck for a while and it's gonna be lonely, but it's gonna be okay. Don't give up. Um, Stay positive. Um, put your put yourself last in those situations, and try to be helpful to those around you, whatever situation you're in. If you're feeling hopeless or lost or sad, um, is to just have the courage to put yourself last and have the courage to help a friend, a family, or a person in need. I think that's a huge key.
Could you expand a bit on that statement? Have the courage to put yourself last.
I think that sometimes we put ourselves first so many times, um, but it's okay to take a step back and take a L, take a loss for yourself to see somebody else get their first win.
Man, I love that more than you realize.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of depth there, and we'll unpack it some other time. But for now, Adam, I want to thank you for this conversation, for the way you show up in this world, for all that you do. And I know for a fact the people listening appreciate you. And if they want to thank you, connect with you, follow along with your journey, where's the best place for people to do that?
guys, you guys are more than welcome to connect with me on Instagram, Adam Perry _. I am, yeah, I respond to everybody. If you message me, I'm gonna respond to you, and I'm gonna be there for you. Um, it's been an honor to be a part of this podcast. You know, knowing the firepower that's been on this podcast, and you, Joe. I remember our first conversation a couple Novembers ago. Um, I was kind of spitballing at you, and I didn't even really know you then, but you just had that aurora around you of, like, I feel like I could just give myself to you in that moment, and I felt safe, and I felt safe this entire conversation, opening up to you and to those that are listening to this amazing podcast. So thank you.
That might be the best compliment I've gotten in a long time. And I appreciate that and want to reflect all of that back to you. And I still remember having that conversation with you. I was up in this third floor office. I didn't have much furniture up here at all because we had moved in just earlier that year. I specifically remember unpacking boxes of shirts, of Project Endure shirts, and folding them while we were talking. I was pacing around the room up here, and that conversation could have went on for
It
hours and
could
I
have.
wouldn't have minded.
It could have,
Right.
man.
Just, just like this one.
I know, man.
Uh,
I know. It's incredible talking to you.
and likewise, man. And so we'll wrap this up so people can go on with their days. And I encourage anyone listening to go follow Adam, reach out to him, connect with him. And just thank you again, man. I can't wait to see what you do next.
Appreciate you, brother. Do hard things as always. Let's get it.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Endure podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Endure Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.